everyone. Welcome to the 423rd episode of the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and your co-host,
Kevin Toffel.
And we have so much to talk about. We're going to be talking about, Latch acquiring Jamie Siminoff's secret stealth company. And what the heck is happening at Latch? Jamie Siminoff was the founder of Ring, so exciting. We're also going to be talking about Google's AI plans, and gosh, do they include Assistant? Plus, we've got a story. It's not a feel-good story. It's about surveillance cameras and using connectivity to squash poor people. We're also going to be talking about why you should never, ever, ever buy a Belkin WeMo device again. And Infineon has made an acquisition that's worth talking about. Amazon has new products and the loss of one of their executives. And we've got a new product from Eve with Thread. We're also going to hear from our guest. Our guest this week is Doug Robertson, who is the COO at Shelly. So if you have Shelly devices or heard us talk about them, now you'll learn more about what's inside the company and what they have planned next. Plus, how to use Shelly products to connect your washing machine correctly without frying your electrical circuits. We're also going to hear from our sponsor, Computex. And we're also going to answer a question about why your Google devices are telling you that some of your skills might stop working as of June 13th. It's a really good show, I feel. So let's start it off with a message from one of our sponsors. This week's sponsor is Blues Wireless. Blues provides cellular products that work so developers can build IoT products that change the world. Founded by industry pioneer Ray Ozzie, Blues provides the hardware and services to link virtually any device to a global cellular network. You can get started today with a Blues Note Card. It's the easiest way for developers to add secure, robust, and affordable prepaid cellular to their microcontroller. With just a few lines of code, anything you build can be cloud connected. Learn more at blues.io. Okay, big story. This week, Amazon announced that Jamie Siminoff was leaving the company just a few months after they were like, oh, he'll be an innovation fellow and there'll be a new CEO over the Ring division. And we were like, oh, that makes sense. His 5 years of, earn out are probably up. When a company buys your company, they usually lock you in for a set amount of time. It used to be about 3 years, but now it's trending up to about 5. So this makes sense. You don't want to stick around as an entrepreneur longer than you have to. And he didn't. It turns out he's been secretly investing in companies under a shell company called Honest Days Work that's about providing services to apartment communities and that sort of thing. And was it the day after Amazon announced that he was leaving? Latch, a publicly traded company that sells software to apartment complexes and hardware via locks, said, hey, we're going to buy Jamie Siminoff's secret company, Honest Days Work, and have him come be our CEO. So, big news week for Jamie.
Good for Jamie.
Yeah, we've had Jamie on the show. He's a good guy. He started Ring all the way back. In
2011, I believe, in his garage.
Yeah, he went on Shark Tank. Shark Tank hated it. Jamie was like, I don't care.
Who's laughing now?
He ended up meeting Richard Branson in an elevator in a European country that I can't remember, telling him about his idea. And then Richard Branson apparently was like, hey, that's pretty cool. Let's do it. It's a really cool story. Like, Jamie has a cool story. Ring, I would say, deservedly gets a rap for creating basically a community-led surveillance network, which is actually what Siminoff was after. But he wanted the surveillance network not to be for the police, but really to be for neighborhoods. Yeah, to be like, hey, something sus is going on. Oh my God, I just used millennial slang.
I can't believe you just said sus. Wow.
What just happened? Okay.
Wow.
Something suspicious is going on. But what Jamie didn't account for is the fact that people tend to be real racist when they do things like that. And we do live in that society. So
sadly,
it makes sense. And I think it's important. Well, we're not going to go there. Anyway, moving
How about the
along.
deal? How about the deal?
Let's talk about this deal. So the thing to know about Latch is it went public as a SPAC back when SPACs were all the rage in 2021. And Now, I was looking at the deal because I'm like, okay, let's see. Latch is publicly traded. The deal that acquired Honest Day's work was in exchange for 29 million of Latch's shares. They get the company. Now, Latch's shares, I don't know what share price they're using exactly for the deal. I did not read through all of the deal papers, but it's a deal that's going to be worth about $22 to $29 million based on the trading price. The market trading price of Latch shares on Monday before the deal was announced was 76 cents. The trading price right now is about 96 cents. So there's the discrepancy.
Mm-hmm.
Honest Day's work brings in about $8 million in cash to the deal. And I was curious to see, hey, how much cash does Latch have on hand? Because that's really important when you're building up a new company. And what Latch does is they sign deals with apartment complexes to build, it's called the Latch OS is their software, and it manages smart devices in the apartments and other aspects of managing an apartment. So it's not just smart home stuff. It's also
service providers, I think. They help manage. So people who provide services to the residents, that is in there somehow. I'm not sure how exactly, but yes.
So when I started looking closer, and I'll just as an aside for everybody who's excited about generative AI, we did this. I was like,
let's ask Bard.
Let's ask Google or Bard. So I was only finding old cash on hand data. And I was like, why am I only getting data from 2021 and 2022? So I was confused about that. So I was like, you know what? Instead of like digging all over SEC filings, let's just go to Bard. Let's see what Bard says. So I asked Google Bard, how much cash on hand does Latch have? And then Bard completely made something up.
Yes. Yes, it says, there's lots, like 264 million per the most recent quarter.
Yeah, it says, according to Latch's latest financial reports, the company has 262 million in cash equivalents as of March 31st, 2023. This is important. So I'm like, okay, cool, Bard. Let's see if you're actually right, because this is something that's just easy to check.
And we should be checking, all of us should be checking any of these AI services, quite honestly.
Yeah. So I went to check, and I can't find any 2023 records. Why? Oh, it's because Latch has been under investigation and an audit because of accounting irregularities. Apparently, it stopped reporting earnings last year around this time, and it hasn't resumed. So you can't actually find Latch's revenue or net loss or cash on hand because they're not sure if it's right. Their audit committee, who basically looks over these earnings and says, yes, you're fine. They're like, no, I can't sign off on these numbers. I don't understand how you got to them. And so Latch actually had a delisting hearing. They're fine for now. They plan to report restated earnings going all the way back to 2021 in August. And as of April, they're still listed. But this is not a company that is like exemplar. So this deal, and this makes sense. It was a SPAC. It went public via not a full public process. Investors came in and said, we're going to give you a bunch of money, and then we'll go buy this already existing public company, and then you'll be public. It's these companies are dodgy.
Yes.
And this company exemplifies that. It's exemplar in its dodginess.
It also explains why the bulk of this deal is in stock.
Mm-hmm. I don't think they have much money.
That's the very question they need to come to terms with and respond to. So we don't know how much they have or not have, but I think they just want to keep this separate.
Yeah, the last time they reported actual earnings, which again will be restated, was for their first quarter of 2022. They had 335 million as of that point.
Well, they reported that. We don't really know if they had that.
They reported that as of that point. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And most of that is actually in marketable securities. 244 million of that is in marketable securities, not actual cash. And yeah. Anyway. Okay. So this deal, fine. And Jamie has a 5-year period to basically boost Latch's stock price to make bonuses. Otherwise, he's just making a salary like the rest of us chumps. And I don't want to say, well, I would not invest in this. Let's just say that. I would not be excited to buy Latch stock at this moment. It doesn't mean that Latch isn't a company that could possibly do big revenue. An issue for them is they sign these deals in advance of an apartment complex being built in some cases. And so they can't earn their money until like a year or two after they've signed the deals.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would not invest in this company either. And I try to look at it from Jamie's standpoint. It gave him an out for his most recent startup, and it gives him a multi-year opportunity to essentially turn this company around. And I guess, he's an entrepreneur, and I think that kind of challenge appeals to people like Jamie. So I can see why he took it.
Yeah. And with a name like that, people will get on board, and maybe he'll take it private. Maybe he'll be like, I don't want to. I mean, I would. Anyway, okay. That's that. That's the Jamie Siminoff deal. That's Latch. Let's move on to Google Assistant. Last week, Google I/O, big story. And Kevin realized that while they were talking a lot about AI, they didn't actually talk about our friend and neighbor, Google Assistant.
Yeah, I found that really interesting. And I don't know how many of our listeners watched the keynote, which was roughly 2 hours or so. But a good, I would say almost 2/3 of it was all about Google's AI efforts right from the very beginning. And that was to remind everybody that, hey, we've been doing AI longer than anybody else, so on and so forth. Yes, all these new contenders have come up with OpenAI, and which has ChatGPT, as well as other language models and generative AI products, and Microsoft's got it in Bing now, and so on and so forth. But this was like, don't forget, this is what we do: big data and analysis and AI. It was so bad. Like, I don't know if you saw it, Stacey. There's like a 14-second video on YouTube.
Yes.
And it's just constant. It's every single clip of where they said AI or generative AI. And it doesn't sound like a lot because it's only 14 seconds, but literally the video goes AI, 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 AI.
It's like 5G from a couple of years ago at one of the Apple keynotes. But yeah. So Google's big on AI.
But strangely to me, there was like barely a mention of Google Assistant, and all of any smart home bits, which was mostly the Pixel tablet and the dock. We've talked about that already. And the new Google Home update, the software interface updates, all of that they even showed on their phones, not even on like smart displays or anything else. So it was very, I don't want to say anti-smart home, but it wasn't what we normally have seen from Google over the last 8 years or so. So at first I was like, well, this sucks. They're going to let Google Assistant basically languish, which in some sense, I think all of the companies that have digital assistants have let them languish. They really haven't pushed them noticeably forward in the past several years. But then I really started thinking about it, and as I looked at the AI presentations and the details of what they're doing and how they plan to implement some of their learning models, and I'm like, you know what? Some of these models can run on small devices, low compute power, mobile devices locally. I'm not saying they would certainly use that model for, say, a digital assistant or a smart speaker or smart display, but it's very possible. And I think Google Assistant, as we know it today, will probably be a thing of the past in roughly 12 to 18 months. And I say that it'll be a better thing because what the AI that they're developing now and demonstrating can do is what I think many of us have wanted for so long, is to have the smart home, or at least the hub or speaker or assistant, really understand the context of what we want, understand who we are, what we do, and what we expect the smart home to do for us. Because today it's just pitiful.
We have to program everything.
Right. We don't have smart homes unless we make them ourselves. We're just getting the tools given to us. We have to go and make routines and automations and so on and so forth, and onboard these devices and figure out what works with what. And I know, yes, everything will work with everything in theory, but we're not there yet. So my two thoughts, or at least two use cases where I see this to kind of show an example of what AI, true AI with Google Assistant could bring, is understanding the patterns in my smart home. Because what I do is pretty much pattern driven. I wake up roughly the same time. I go right to the coffee machine, make a cup of coffee. I go right to my recliner. I turn on the light if and only if I need to, depending on where the sun is that day, the time of day, etc., and so on and so forth. I have some of that automated, but I've had to A, create it, and B, adjust it, because some things don't always work with sunrise, sunset. You got to specify times, and times are not necessarily patterns. So yeah, if you have AI that can start understanding those patterns and then prompt or say, hey, I've created a routine for all this to happen for you. Do you want me to enable it? Yes, I do. You learned it, you code it, you do it. That's wonderful. That would go a long way in the smart home. On the flip side, we also use these for knowledge, for information. And just today, I asked my Google Assistant, what lights work with Google Home? And to be honest, Stacy said to me, that's not very clear, which explains why I got a really crappy answer. It started explaining what the lights are on my Google Smart Display and what they do. I want to know what light bulbs I can use with Google Home. And it couldn't do that. And Stacey, I think you asked a more specific version of that question.
I asked what light bulbs will work with Google Home, and it then explained to me how I could get light bulbs onboarded into my Google Home. Which
again is not the answer. So, but when you start looking, if you were to ask similar questions to some of these AI models, the information's out there. It just needs to be absorbed by these AIs. And instead of us having to go search the internet for 10 different sites to go see different product manufacturer product pages or, our site or whatever it is to understand what works with what, the AI is going to go a long way towards helping bring more knowledge, more useful and helpful knowledge to digital assistants in the future, I think. So I was initially a little bummed when I watched I.O., but after absorbing all this and thinking it through, I'm actually feeling pretty good.
Okay. And I think the important thing to think about here, an interesting thing to think about is Google also announced a bunch of different large language models. And some of them are small, like
Gecko.
Was it Gecko? Gemini?
They had Palm in the past. They introduced Palm V2.
Right.
And that is available now, and that's what powers Bard. They also are working on something called Gemini. And Palm V2 and Gemini both come in 4 different sizes. I think they named them after animals to kind of represent this, which is kind of silly, but whatever. That's what they do. They are Gecko, Otter, Bison, and Unicorn, in range from smallest to largest, and Gecko can run on device, offline, on small compute things.
And I think that'll be important for inside the smart home, because some of that data is going to be intensely personal. And it's unclear, how, are they going to look for patterns? Are they going to look at your individual data? But I think that'll make people feel a little bit more comfortable, giving access to some of this data to a smart machine in the home. And I should also note that Amazon is doing the same thing. They're applying a large language model to Madam A. Apple will not tell us what it's doing, but I'm sure it's doing something similar. So we're definitely going to see a lot more of this. And I would like Assistant to be better. So sure, I'm down for it. But the flip side that we have to worry about, though, is holy cow, as these things gain a better understanding and memory, I don't want to call it a true understanding, but a less superficial understanding of our lives and patterns, we open up the risk that this data is going to get shared with companies and we don't really know how it gets used. And the Washington Post actually did a really good story talking about how security and safety grants from the Department of Housing and Urban Development has helped facilitate the purchase of cameras for public housing. And they argue that this will help make residences safer, stop gang activity, that sort of thing. What it has in turn turned out to be used for is catching small violations that people might have inside public areas of public housing and using that to evict people from public housing. And that is a problem. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I'll link to the story. It's a really good story, but it speaks to the fact that as we have more sensors, more cameras, more compute capabilities, and can really see what's going on around us and have computers help adjudicate that, I guess, alert us to things that don't belong based on rules we've told it, we run into this area where we could see every single person violating a law all the time. They do this in China. You can get fined for jaywalking, like electronically.
The fee will actually be paid before you get all the way across the street from your WeChat account. Yes.
So I think we have to question, are we ready for this? And is this going to be weaponized against poor people and immigrants? Because if police officers can automatically prosecute someone for every single tiny violation, I hope that's not what we want. Now,
no.
A lot of these laws were implemented as a way to catch people out when you couldn't catch them in other ways. So you might evict someone for stealing a laundry cart because you know they sell drugs on the premises, but you don't have any other proof, right? So in an era where we're about to have eyes everywhere, how do we rethink our legal structure, our laws, to not punish people for basically being poor and making a tiny bad decision, I guess, because you'll be able to see everything.
Yeah, it comes back to, once you give up your data or once it's taken from you, you have lost all control of it. And currently we're relying on people and companies to use it ethically and morally. And obviously there's countless examples of that not being the case.
Yeah, they're just using it for profit. I mean, the companies are. Okay, let's talk about WeMo.
For the last time, probably.
Yeah, stop buying it. So the latest news is IoT security firm Sternum. They disclosed a buffer overflow vulnerability in the WeMo Mini Smart Plug V2. I actually have these two. I have two of these. I unplugged them, chunked them.
We actually covered the news of this a couple shows ago.
We did?
We did.
Okay, great.
I'm almost positive we did, because this is not new. We knew that it was disclosed and the company hadn't responded. That was last we heard. And we said, I'd probably not use these right now. We told people. Now I'm saying, get rid of them completely.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because, yes. So Sternum, who found this vulnerability, which is actually, it could actually let someone who doesn't have physical access, so use remote access to take over your WeMo smart plug. They reached out to Belkin in January, and Belkin basically said, yeah, we're not going to update it because these are at the end of their life. And these are, I bought these like 4 years ago. So these devices debuted in 2019. So these aren't that old.
Not for an outlet, no.
No, not for a smart outlet. I mean, I used to, like my original Belkin WeMo outfits, I had those for I got it in 2012 and I had it probably like 7 years.
Yeah, same.
Those also had a security issue in the sense that the way they were designed, you actually, if you had access to a Wi-Fi network, if you were on the Wi-Fi network in your host home, for example, and you had the WeMo app, you could just log in and control the lights. But that was a feature, not a bug, according to WeMo. But then we were like, no, that's not great. Anyway, so WeMo is basically like, yeah, we're not going to fix it. And I'm kind of like, you know what? You probably should give people some of their money back. Of course, they'd probably just give you a coupon for more WeMo devices. And at this point, I'm like, don't buy Belkin. Just stop. We have seen their colors, and their colors are, we don't care.
I agree with you for two reasons. One, because it's not being handled at all, right? And two, it's WeMo's own software that has the flaw. Apparently, you can trigger a buffer overflow by passing a device name more than its 30-character limit. Not only that, that gets you access. You can then inject operable code, meaning if this is on your Wi-Fi network, other Wi-Fi connected devices, your TVs, your fridges, your computers could be accessed and or compromised in ways we don't even know yet. That's terrible.
Yeah. So take them out. If you absolutely feel like you must have them, put them on their own network, but really just take them out. You can buy some Matter smart plugs. Those things have, you can buy a 2-pack for what, $30?
I got mine for like $20 on sales, but I think 30 for the Meros ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we tried TP Links as well.
Yeah. TP Link has lovely ones. So, just dump WeMo. Don't ever buy it again. They've had at least 2 to 3 chances and they failed all of them. Just no.
Yep.
All right. Moving right along. Okay. Smaller stories, but still worth mentioning. Infineon, big chip company, they bought a company called Imagimob. And if you're like, who the heck is Imagimob? They're really cool. You know how I'm obsessed with TinyML? That's what Imagimob does. They do tiny machine learning for all sorts of things at the edge. They offer software that lets a developer put in data, train it real fast, and then run it on a edge device. And I actually know of several companies that are doing it for things like, oh, I'm going to detect weird jitter and vibrations on machines and use that for predictive analysis, predictive maintenance. And it's a good platform. It's pretty easy for developers to use. And now Infineon is basically with this deal saying, yeah, you know what? Tiny machine learning, worth looking into, worth owning a platform that makes that easy for people and then to bring it and port it to our chips. So that's what this deal is about. And it's a really good thing. The reason why we love TinyML finally for the IoT is because it helps take all this sensor data. If you process it right at the edge, you can dump most of the data and just keep your insight. And that's good for privacy. It's good for energy. It's good for security. It's good. Okay. Next up, Amazon news. Amazon has new devices. You want to run through them, Kevin?
I will run through them quickly because there's nothing too compelling here in my opinion, but you never know. There is an all-new Echo Pop for $40. Yep. It kind of looks like a mini version of the Hue Go Lite, only it's a speaker. So it's like a bowl that has a flat part that kind of points it up. So there you go. $40 front-facing directional speaker. They also have a brand new next generation Echo Show 5 for $90 and Echo Show 5 Kids for $100. I don't really see much new here. Double the bass. Okay, clearer sound. Yippee. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it has a better neural processor, and they're both going to, and all these will support Matter, by the way.
Oh, yeah. That's true. That's actually a good point. All new Echo Buds, $50, and multi-point technology, so you can pick up your audiobook or music from one device to the other as you move around. And honestly, $50 is pretty low costing for these types of earbuds. I don't know how good they are. I've never used them, but if you're in the Amazon ecosystem, I almost said ecosystem. If you're in the ecosystem, these might be worth it. And then a quick update that the Echo Auto, which has been available here in the US for quite a while, is now available in multiple countries in the EU, as well as Australia, Canada, and Japan.
Yay. All right. Also in Amazon news, man, this is sad. Ken Washington, he is the gentleman who oversaw Amazon Astro's home robot as the vice president of consumer robotics. He's leaving the company. He's been there for less than 2 years. I actually think Washington has been on the podcast before because he used to be the CTO at Ford Motor Co. And we've had him talking about cars, smart cars. So he is leaving to pursue an external job. We don't know what it is, but let's keep our eyes open for him because he's a smarty pants. Yes. And this does raise questions about like Astro. Amazon does have a program to make Astro smarter by putting some generative AI models in it. It's called Burnham. That was also reported by Insider. But I will say it's still an invite-only device. It's not, I don't think that's a super compelling device just yet. So yeah. And we all know that Amazon is focusing. It's in these times of hardship, it is laying off large chunks of teams, and a big chunk has been in the home devices division and also in the professional enterprise robotics division. So we may be seeing a little less on this front for a while. Okay. And Eve has a brand new device. Kevin, tell us about it.
And it has Matter. Actually, 2 new devices. They both have Matter. Most news outlets covered one of them, which is the new Eve Flare, a portable smart LED lamp with water resistance and wireless charging, Bluetooth and Thread. It is $99.95, which is a bit much for what it is. It's kind of like the Echo Dot that's like a globe. It looks just like a ball of light. It's got a slightly flat base. It has a battery that can provide 6 hours of illumination. I think it's great that it's got Thread and all that, and you can use it outdoors, but it's only 95 lumens, which is not a lot.
It's for your sexy romantic lighting. And you know what? I like it.
Well, okay.
It's expensive, but it's not so expensive. Like, one of the hot things right now in lighting are these like LED, they're USB rechargeable LED lights that you stick on your tables. And I think like having a couple of these for like summertime. In my case, it would be summertime parties. Although the sun doesn't set till 10, and that feels really late. But the point is, I think it's nice for like that kind of ambiance lighting in the dark. Maybe I'd get it and like bring it out for the hot tub. I really don't know.
I think the price is going to limit the market for this, because to me, this is a bit extravagant for what it is. But that's just me. I'm a minimalist, so I get it. It could just be, I am. Additionally, Eve announced their shutter switch, which has Thread and Bluetooth. And we were like, a shutter switch? What the heck is that? It's 99.95 euros on sale now in select European countries. So we can't get it here yet. Basically, it has some smarts to it to a point, because it can store your GPS and the direction your window faces. So it can understand when the sun will be coming up or down automatically. You use the Eve app in your phone to kind of have that detected one time. And then it will automatically raise and lower your shutters. I don't have shutters like they're showing, but based on the weather. So
I actually think this is neat. It's based on the position of the sun. So you basically when you install it, you use your phone to be like, hey, this is where it's facing. And then it's like, cool. And then it just automatically does it. Now you have a button that you can press if you hate what it's done. Like you're like, no, I'm still in bed.
You can raise and lower the shades yourself if you'd like.
But I think this is kind of a neat little design. So I like it. All right. Well, that concludes the news for this week, but let's take a question from our IoT podcast hotline. This week's hotline is sponsored by Particle. Looking to fast track your IoT projects? Particle is offering free dev kits to new users if you're located in the US or Canada. Visit www.particle.io to claim your free dev kit today. Yay! All right. And with this section of the show, this is where we talk to you. You can give us a call at 512-623-7424 and ask us your questions about the smart home or IoT or life in general. And if you do, you'll be entered to win a Nanoleaf Triangles Starter Kit. That is this month's prize. And this week, our question doesn't actually come from the hotline. It came from Twitter. And I thought it was worthwhile because it's a question that I've actually gotten also via email. And I ran into someone who asked me this, and it's happened to me. So this question is from Matt on Twitter. And he asks, when I use my Delta Voice IQ faucet, it tells me that, quote, just so you know, after June 13th, Delta Faucet Voice IQ will no longer work with Google Assistant. So he's asking Google Assistant to turn on his Delta faucet. And he asks, did Delta sunset this feature? I can't find a useful news support article. Thanks. So I went looking for Matt. And Matt is not the only person. So Delta is having this issue, Moen is having this issue, and a lot of games and other services are having this issue with Google Assistant. The answer as to why this is happening, we go all the way back to last June when Google said that they were going to change what they called conversational actions. They were going to kill it and replace it with something called app actions. So conversational actions were a way that developers could create custom experiences in conversation for Google Assistant. And they are doing away with that instead to let developers pull from their Android apps to allow all the features from an Android app to get pushed into Google Assistant. So the idea was it would be easier for developers because they didn't have to make a voice one and an app, like an Android app. Now, if you were a company that didn't have an Android app, this was bad news for you. And they're sunsetting this now on June 13th. So that's what that means. Now, in Matt's case, Delta has already figured out how to fix this. Your Delta faucet is not going to stop working. I talked to a gentleman at Delta Faucet, Joe Baumgart, and he says, yes, Google was surprised us by appending that message to our voice scale, but we have been aware that this has been happening for a while and we are totally prepared. And I'll put this in a story that we're going to publish about this, but he provides some lovely instructions for you if it becomes a problem. But it shouldn't become a problem because Delta's on it. So that's good. I did reach out to Moen. I haven't heard from them because that was another, I don't know what it is about syncs in this particular issue. A long time ago, Delta didn't have an Android app, so maybe that's why. Now, there are some conversational actions that are affected that are just going to shut those down. And I found a couple of those. There's one that like plays music to go to sleep by or relaxing songs. I don't know about the Jeopardy app, which is actually one that's affected. Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh no.
I would say any service where the conversational actions are like a middleman, for lack of a better term, that connection is gone or going away.
Well, so I talked to someone at Google and they wouldn't give me any information about the number of actions that would be affected.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But they did say that stories and games that are verbally led, that is the majority of the items that are affected by this. So the best thing for you to do as a user, if you use these actions, you should probably reach out to the developer themselves and say, hey, are you going to fix this or update to use the app actions instead of conversational actions? They may not, but that's your option here. So that's what's going on, y'all, if you're encountering this. And there you go. And if you have a Delta faucet, you don't have to worry. So hope that helps you, Matt. Okay, so remember, if you have a question that we can help you out with, give us a call at 512-623-7424, and we're happy to do so. You'll also be entered to win that Nano Leaf Smart Triangle Starter Kit. And that concludes this segment of the show, but please stay tuned for our guest, Doug Robertson, who is the COO at Shelly, who's going to be talking about the Shelly relays, smart home products, who the heck Shelly is, and some of the things like their plans for Matter that you can expect going forward. But before we get to that, let's hear from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Computex. Hey everyone, we're taking a quick break from the Internet of Things podcast for a message from our sponsor. And this week's sponsor is Computex. And I have with me Tessa Lynn, who is the marketing and PR manager at Computex. Tessa, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
So, from what I can gather, Computex is one of the largest tech shows in the world. It's held annually since 1981. For this year, what's the theme and what is new?
This year, Computex theme is Together We Create. What's new is that it will be a record-breaking year, bringing together over 1,000 exhibitors from 23 countries from May 30th to June 2nd in Taipei. And we are going green with our first ESG Go series, which includes a Computex forum session on technological sustainability, an Earth mission app developed in collaboration with Acer to build eco-friendly habits, and even a tree planting campaign.
That's great. So I understand that at Computex, there's an exclusive exhibit called Innovex. Can you tell me more about that?
Innovex is dedicated exclusively for brilliant startups, and it's also the largest startup platform in Asia. It provides an opportunity for startups from around the world to network and collaborate with other startups, as well as with investors and industry experts. This year, we will welcome 400 startups from 22 countries to showcase their applications and services.
Okay, and what are some of the hot topics that will be featured at Innovex this year?
Some of the hot topics at this year's Innovex include smart car and e-mobility, metaverse and XR, VR, AR, 5G, artificial intelligence and Internet of Things applications, and ESG and green tech. These are all areas of technology that are seeing rapid growth and innovation, and Innovex is the perfect place to see the latest developments in these fields.
Okay, and what can we expect from the country pavilions at Innovex?
This year, we have pavilions from Belgium, Brazil, France, Italy, Israel, Japan, the Netherlands, and Poland. Each pavilion will showcase startups from these respective countries and provide a unique opportunity for attendees to experience the latest technologies from all around the world, all in one place.
Sounds exciting. So, where can our listeners go to learn more?
Please visit www.computextaipei.com.tw/Stacy on IoT to learn more about Computex 2023.
Thank you, Tessa, for helping our listeners learn more about Computex 2023 and Innovex. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and today's guest is Doug Roberson, who is the COO at Shelly USA. Hello, Doug. How are you today?
Hi, Stacey. Thanks for having me on the show.
Man, I am really excited. I don't know when y'all first reached out for me a while back and introduced me to the Shelly products, and they are great. We recommend them a lot. There's a lot of versatility there. And I was like, you know what? Nobody knows who you guys are. So we're having you on the show to kind of give an introduction. So do you want to tell us a little bit about Shelly USA and probably the relationship to Ultraco and when y'all came to the US and all that good stuff?
Absolutely. So we're the U.S. subsidiary of Ultraco Robotics. That's the manufacturer of Shelly products. We used to be called Ultraco Robotics US, but we recently rebranded to sort of help with customer confusion and sort of streamline communications with everyone. We opened our office in Las Vegas 3 weeks before the lockdown started. So it's been a little challenging opening the North American market, but we're here and we've also got a location in Boca Raton now, which handles most of our sales and logistics, as well as where the tech team is centered.
And Ultraco has a lot of different products. They've got personal care stuff, they've got watches, they've got tracking stuff, they've got smart home gear. Shelly is really just focused on smart home, correct?
Well, it's fair to say that Shelly is a combination of IoT and building automation. Because if you sort of shoehorn the products into just one category like smart home, you ignore the real life use cases that they're used for, especially here in the Americas. Some of our largest customers have been corporate companies, retailers, grocery store chains, pharmacies, convenience stores, quick service restaurants, and the like. And they may use a sensor or our smart plug for a very specific use case or solution. But at the same time, that solution sort of works for everybody. So you really have to be a little more general about how you classify the products.
And when it comes to products, what y'all mostly sell or have historically sold are these modules that I put in behind my light switches or electrical outlets. And then you've got a few smart bulbs, you've got some software to kind of tie this all together. It's an extra kind of harder level of DIY plus a few sensors and a few less DIY things. Is that a kind of fair characterization?
Well, yeah, that is fair. We've got relays are our core product line, and they come in two form factors. You have DIN rail. Here in the Americas, DIN rail is typically more industrial or commercial use. And then you have what we call our retrofit relays, which we'll install behind a light switch or an electrical outlet in a standard wall box. And as you mentioned, we've got sensors for temperature, humidity, leaks, motion, and a number of other things. And the idea is to help incorporate environmental data into the control of the relay products. Energy efficiency and energy savings are one of the three core areas that I tend to focus on in my work. A lot of our products have a designation PM, that's for power measurement, or they have EM, which is energy metering. So these products are designed to control circuits as the other Shelly products do, but primarily they're providing energy data or enhanced electrical safety features.
And these are super powerful. So I'd love for you to help me understand the difference between one of your more advanced relays and just a energy monitoring smart plug. Because if I have the option of buying one or the other, what are the benefits I get from buying a relay? Yes, I have to wire it in, but it's not that hard.
Right. So a smart plug to begin with is a very narrow form factor. It works with electrical outlets, meaning you plug it into a wall outlet. It's typically going to be rated for 10 to 15 amps, and it works at 120 volts. Now, of course, other countries with other electrical systems have plugs that are ideally suited for their setup. But the commonality between all of them is this is a plug, and you don't need electrical skills to use it. And anything that you can plug into an outlet, you can then plug into this. And it sort of acts as the intermediary between the electrical system and the device.
And for your stuff, you have a lot more variety and options. Like I could plug this into like my dryer circuit, which normally I could not add a smart plug to, correct?
That's not correct. In Europe, yes, but here in the United States, we really have two different electrical systems in our homes. One is 120 volt, and it's what you would call a single wire or single phase circuit, and those are our lights and our electrical outlets. But 70% of the energy consumption in our home are from higher amperage circuits, and we call this split single phase or two phase, and this is a two wire circuit. So things like your water heater, your car charger, your clothes dryer, your oven, or your pool pump or pool heater, all of these things, including your HVAC system, use split single phase. They're 240 volt, they have two wires, and they're higher amperage. So we have ways to control this and to get energy data from them, but it's a bit more involved than say a plug, which can, in Europe handle your clothes dryer or possibly even your water heater. But here, just the differences in the electrical system mean that we have to have a special approach.
So in the US, do you have a product that can handle that?
Yes. And the way it works here, you have what's called a contactor. A contactor is just another kind of relay, and it's typically not a smart one. It's something that has a coil that you can use to trigger it, and then it has the actual relay, which controls the circuit. What we do is we use either one of our relays that have dry contacts, which do not have power measurement data, or we use an energy meter, which has a contactor control. So we sort of combine the Shelly product with an accessory product, and that allows you to control that circuit. Now, to make things easier, we're actually about to release products specifically for the North American market that include an electrical enclosure, the terminal blocks you need for wiring, the contactor, and your choice of the relay controller or the energy meter. So everything is going to come in one box, all of the parts that you need, guaranteed to work together, and you can use that to automate a 240 volt appliance. And again, the reason that's so important is that if you care about energy consumption, 70% of your home's electrical use is typically from these appliances.
Got it. And this is where things get fun because right now the Shelly products work with several other ecosystems. You've got the Shelly software itself, which is incredibly robust. Y'all, it's great. There's a lot of, you can do a lot with that, but it also works with Amazon, Google. Is it also HomeKit certified? No.
Not yet. However, right now, HomeKit we don't directly support. When we have Matter support, that will come with that. That will come with Matter by default. And also, we don't have support from Savant, the professional home electronics system. But everything else we do have support for, whether it's direct native integration or it's a third party driver.
Okay. And when do you think you'll have Matter support?
Well, we're projecting by the end of this quarter, but it may be early in the next quarter.
Matter's hard.
Well, the thing is, there's a lot of stuff that we do that Matter just doesn't support. So the route that we're taking is an optional firmware update that's reversible so that you can directly connect to Matter. I actually would consider something along the lines of connecting some devices to Matter and having others still on the Shelly platform, because there are a lot of things like the built-in timers and schedules, the JavaScript editor. If you're in a corporate environment, you've got TLS encryption to care about, because you want a secure connection. All of the APIs. I don't know how much we're going to be able to bring across to Matter because there are very specific parts of the specification that are supported today. We don't know what's going to be supported tomorrow. And so until we're closer to having the alpha and beta versions, I'm personally not going to know what features we can support when we go over.
Yeah, that's a challenge. But you still support a ton of things. And even if you didn't, if you have the Shelly gear, it's the internal software is really powerful. Let's talk about some of the use cases that you're seeing your commercial and enterprise clients build.
So the top, hands down, is the remote power cycling of network equipment. That could be a cable modem, it could be a switch or a firewall, or it could be a number of different devices. But the idea behind it is instead of having someone drive to a remote location just to unplug something and plug it back in, you can power cycle it remotely through a dashboard that's controlling or connected to a plug or a relay or something along those lines. It's very expensive to roll a truck just to unplug something. I know of companies that spend an average of about $2 million a year. They may have 500 truck rolls a month for many thousands of locations, and so over time that becomes very expensive. If you can put in a plug that has robust API support, encryption that can be considered secure at an enterprise level, that makes it very attractive for companies to be able to eliminate the truck rolls and still have service. In fact, it's faster service because instead of having to send someone to that location, however long the trip may take, they can instantly trigger it from the dashboard at the support center.
And this is a good question. How do you provide the enterprise level of security on your devices? What are the steps that y'all have taken?
Well, the first two, TLS encryption, and the second, encrypted flash. But we've got other features, and some customers have required very, very specific firmware additions, and we've been able to provide those. It really depends. Every company has a different playbook. So the real key is finding out what are the security requirements for the enterprise in question and determining whether or not we can meet those needs. And so far, we've always been able to.
And then let's talk about smart home use cases. People ask for this all the time. So I'm just going to, you can tell me another one, but I'm going to ask you, how the heck would I use Shelly to automate, not automate, but have my washing machine or my dryer tell me when they're done? Because this is so common and it's actually really hard to do with sensors.
Well, for us, it's fairly easy. You need something that's doing power measurement on the circuit. For your washing machine, that can be a smart plug. For your dryer, which is a 240-volt appliance, you'd need an energy meter on the circuit. But basically, you can actually do it with our cloud. That's the simplest way to do it, though you could also write custom JavaScript on a Plus or a Pro product that does something that's very targeted for your needs. With the cloud solution, you basically just set up a scene that says when power consumption starts and then power consumption stops, send this notification to my voice assistant.
And if I wanted to do this with the Shelly product, what relay would I use for the dryer?
For the dryer, I'd use Shelly 3EM because it has contactor control. The reason I'd go that extra step is because you're already measuring power consumption and you want to know, hey, the dryer has stopped, send the notification. But what if you've got time of use rates and you want to make sure that the dryer is only used when electricity is the cheapest, or you want to exclude the use of it during peak demand hours when electricity is most expensive? If you have a contactor control of the circuit, that means that you can turn it off by default. If someone needs to override it, they can, but you can even get notifications. For example, you're away from home and someone at your house enables the circuit during peak demand. You can call home and check and say, are you sure this is what you need to do? Because it's 5 times more expensive right now than it would be in 3 hours.
Wow, that's $145 product that goes into your circuit box, yes?
It can, or it can install into its own enclosure.
That is a lot. Okay. With this idea of understanding rates and pricing, we're seeing a lot of products come out or be announced. They haven't all actually made it into the market, but Savant has a product. Schneider Electric has announced products. Leviton, everybody's got these. And these are smarter circuits for your breaker box, and then software to help manage things like charging your electric car. Maybe it helps manage what things get power from a battery in case of a power outage. Can you talk about how you want to integrate with those things or how you're thinking about kind of that future?
So if you're talking about load shedding or staggered startup, our products can already do that today. And you don't have to integrate with the panel to do it. You can do it at the actual point of control. So if you've got multiple lighting circuits that are on a single breaker, you can have control of those individual lighting circuits rather than just controlling everything that's on a breaker. The level of granular control is important because you have to have flexibility. people have different kinds of lives and lifestyles. So a one size fits all solution doesn't matter in this particular case. What they want is something that's adaptable to their needs and their lifestyle. Shelly devices are able to control each other. So if you've got an energy meter that's checking the overall consumption of your house, it can send commands to other devices, which can then turn off or turn on. They can work in a group. You can set up, say, a simple script in the JavaScript editor on one of the devices to set up an array of devices. And what I mean by that is you take a group of circuits and you know the addresses for each of the Shelly devices, and you can just have it cycle through that list to turn things off or on based on the overall electrical consumption of your home. So that's really good for load shedding when you want to extend the period of time that you're using renewables or limit the number of devices that you're using during peak hours of demand. Then you have staggered startup, which is where you've got a generator or you're on a power wall and you want to limit inrush current or the amount of current that hits when you go from power off to power on. You want to make sure that you're not overloading the circuit. And so with the Shelly products you've installed, you're able to say, this is the one that turns on first. 30 seconds after power is restored, turn on this one. 2 minutes later, turn on this one, and so on. And because the devices have the locally stored timers and schedules and power on defaults, there's a lot of autonomy that you can have with Shelly devices. They can control themselves and they're going to act in a predictable way. And they don't need a cloud connection or someone else's computer to tell them how to act.
Let's shift a little bit. In March, your parent company announced a deal with Espressif, which is a chip maker. They make one of everybody's favorite IoT chips, the ESP32 and the ESP8266. Woo! Y'all are going to do a special customized chip with them?
Yes, and it makes sense because we're actually their largest customer.
I did not know that.
I didn't either until this came up. It actually makes sense for us. We want to make sure that we have the right features. We want to make sure that we have something that's going to meet our future needs. Because it's funny, every time you increase the flash on your devices, it seems like firmware features sort of gobble that up. And the next thing you know, you're back at work refactoring code to sort of get down below the limit of flash. So having extra flash, additional power in the processor, that's going to help the future generation of Shelly products continue to innovate.
When would we see the first chip? Like, how long does this development cycle take?
I don't have exact dates, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Shelly devices with the new chips around the end of this year.
Got it. All right. So I have to ask, what can we expect? I'm now expecting Matter, maybe not the end of this quarter, but maybe in the fall from y'all, Matter support on an optional basis. What else can I expect from y'all?
Well, as I mentioned, for the North American market, next month we'll have kits coming out for 240 volt appliances. We're also going to have some high quality DC power supplies for LED strips and for use with the Pro products, DIN rail mounted. But one of my favorites is a project I've been working on for a while, and that's a water shutoff valve that pairs with our flood sensor. And the idea is that if it detects a leak somewhere in your home or your condo or your apartment, it can automatically turn off the water without having to go out on the cloud or use some other control system. The flood sensor can immediately initiate control of the relay through a REST command, and it just fires off. It's instant.
All right. Well, Doug, thank you so much for joining us on the show this week. I really appreciate it.
Thank you again, Stacy. It's been a real pleasure.
Okay, so thanks everyone for listening to this week's Internet of Things podcast. I really appreciate it, as does Kevin. And if you want to find out more information on the Internet of Things, you can find it at my free weekly newsletter that comes out every Friday. You can sign up for that at www.stacyoniot.com/newsletter. Or you can just visit the website for all of those stories published a little bit later. Thanks for listening and have a great week.